everyone, welcome back to the channel, and a special welcome to you if you are new. Today we're going to look at subject and verb agreement. Today we're just going to do a brief introduction, so pay attention while we get straight into the lesson. Now today we're going to look at subject and verb agreement. There are two things that every sentence must have to make it complete, and that's the subject and the verb. Every sentence must have that. If it doesn't, it's not a complete sentence. Now let's look at what we have here. Every sentence must have a subject and a verb. The subject and the verb must agree in number, meaning a singular subject must be followed by a singular verb, and a plural subject must be followed by a plural verb. Now we're going to explain what a subject is and what a verb is. Here we have two definitions, one for subject and one for verb. The subject in a sentence refers to the doer of the action, or what or whom the sentence is about. It can be a person, place, or thing. The verb refers to the doing part of the sentence. So the subject is the doer while the verb is the actual doing. All right? And I'm going to put some sentences, and we are going to identify the subject and the verb in each of those sentences. Okay, we're going to try to identify the subject and the verb in each of these sentences. Now, before we go into that, we need to know some things. The most common pattern of sentences in the English language usually have the subject at the beginning, and the verb normally follows. Now, in order to identify the subject and the verb in the sentence, you need to ask yourself a few questions. One, who or what is the sentence about? And then after you answer that, then you need to ask yourselves, what does the person or the thing do in the sentence? Or what is the person or thing in the sentence? And then once you have answered that, then you go ahead and identify the subject and the verb. So the first sentence reads, the dog jumps over the fence. Now, the sentence is about the dog. What does the dog do? Jump. All right, so let us identify this. So put an S here for subject and V for verb. And there's an important thing I need to point out here. Now, if you notice, the singular dog doesn't have an S, but the singular jump has an S. Jumps is a singular. So it is an opposite kind of relationship between nouns and verbs. So if you add an S to dog, then that will be dogs, which will be plural. But in the case of verb, you'll have to drop off that S for it to be plural. All right, so I hope you understand that kind of relationship. All right, number two, they play basketball at the park. Now, who is the sentence about? They means more than one person. And what does the subject do? In this case is they play. So let us put S, and play is the verb. All right, so they represents plural, and play plural now pronoun, and play is the verb here. So if you notice, no S on it, because as I said before, the plural verb doesn't have an S. 3. Mark sits at the front of the class. Mark, one person, a noun. Mark is what the sentence is about, so therefore let us put S. And Mark does what? Mark sits. So the verb would be sits. She receives a salary. She is a singular pronoun which represents a female. And the sentence is about she. What does she do? She receives a salary. So the subject there is she, and receives is the verb. Next one, the water is dirty. What is the sentence about? Water. So the subject is water. And is the verb. Now water is what you call an uncountable noun. Uncountable nouns are nouns that you can't count. Right? It's not like you can say you have 10 cars in the parking lot. Right? It's a noun that you can't count, so you call it an uncountable noun. You can't say 10 water, or you can't say 5 water. Water is just water. So it's an uncountable noun. And uncountable nouns are usually followed by singular verbs. And that is why you have is and not are here. Now, another thing to point out here with is what we call a helping verb or an auxiliary verb. And these verbs usually come before a main verb. So for example, you have the boy is walking. The main verb there would be walking, and is would be the helper. But in some cases, as in the case of this sentence here, is can stand on its own, and other helping verbs as well. Alright? So that's an important thing to point out. So the water is dirty. Water is an uncountable noun. It's always followed by a singular verb. That's why we have is there. So water is the subject, is the verb. Alright, that's it. That's all for today, folks. Hope you have found the lesson useful and informative. So with that said, all I want to do is to remind you to like, share, comment, and most of all, subscribe. So see you in the next lesson.